The Adventure by Jayant Narlikar. Introduction I have already introduced to you all, and regarding this also I have already explained to you. So the meaning also should be known to you all. So let us begin today with the paragraph and part by part explanation. And little bit excuse me as voice could glitch in between, okay, due to the hardware only. So just uh, m- make yourself ready with the book, and while listening you just put your book in front of you and just move according, uh, line by line. It will be all right. Okay, some of the word might missed out. Okay, so in the first paragraph, Jayant Narlikar, what he says, okay, two character, okay, two friends, okay, I will make you remember here, okay, because entire uh, conversation would be taken place, okay, between two friends only, okay, that is one is uh, Professor Gaikonde, okay, and another is Rajendra Deshpande. These two you have to remember, okay. So the explanation starts like this with the train traveling, okay. So in the train, who is traveling? Professor Gaikonde, okay. The Jija Mata Express. The name of the express is Jija Mata, okay. Sped along the Pune, Bombay. Bombay is the old name, and new name is Mumbai. I think you remember this. So route considerably faster than the Deccan Queen. So both of the expresses comparing here. Okay, Jijamata Express is very faster than Deccan Queen. There were no industrial townships outside Pune. The first stop, Lonavala, came in 40 minutes. The Ghat section that followed was no different from what he knew. The train stopped at Karjat only briefly and went on at even greater speed. It rode through Kalyan. So, in this passage, the Jijayamata Express is traveling quickly along the Pune to Bombay route, even faster than the well-known Deccan Queen train. After leaving Pune, the train reaches Lonavala in 40 minutes. The scenery through the hills, that means Ghat section, what you have seen this one, okay. Ghat section means hills, okay, hills. Ghat section is familiar to the narrator, okay. The train makes a quick stop at which station? Karjat. Okay, here, stopped at Karjat. Then speeds up even more as it continues through Kalyan, moving rapidly towards its destinations. Second paragraph, the explanation might be long, okay, time also it will consume as the chapter is very lengthy. So I will try to explain part by part. Meanwhile, the racing mind of Professor Gaitonde had arrived at a plan of action in Bombay. Indeed, as a historian, he felt he should have thought of it sooner. He would go to a big library and browse through history books. That was the surest way of finding out how the present state of affairs was reached. He also planned eventually to return to Pune and have a long talk with Rajendra Deshpande, who would surely help him understand what had happened. So here in this passage or paragraph, you can say, Professor Gaitonde, whose mind is racing with thoughts, okay, comes up with a plan for which he reaches Bombay. As a historian, he realizes he should have thought of this earlier. Okay, he'll visit a large library there to read history books and how the current situation came to be. He also had planned to return to Pune later and discuss everything with his friend Rajendra Deshpande, a friend who can help him make sense of happened, assuming that in this world existed someone called Rajendra Deshpande. The train stopped beyond Long Tunnel. It was a small station called Sharhad. An Anglo-Indian in uniform went through the train checking permits. So here in this passage, Professor Gaitonde wonders if Rajendra Deshpande even exists in this world, hinting at some confusion or alternate reality. Okay, the train then stops at a small station called Sarhat. Okay, where who was checking, where an Anglo-Indian officer in uniform checks the passengers' permits, adding a layer of formality and control to the journey. Okay, this is where the British Raj begins. You are going for the first time, I presume, Khan Sahib asked. Yes, the reply was factually, yes, the reply was factually correct. Gangadhar Pant had not been to this Bombay before. So, whose full name is Professor, okay, Gangadhar Gaikonde, okay, Gaikonde. Professor, his full name, okay, is Gangadhar Gaitonde, okay, Professor Gangadhar Gaitonde. He ventured, he ventured a question, and Khan Sahib, how will you go to Peshawar? Okay, so here Khan Sahib informs Gangadhar Pant that the British Raj begins from this point as he was traveling by train, okay, suggesting they are entering British controlled territory. When Khan Sahib asked if this is Gangadhar's Pant's first visit going there, he truthfully responds, yes, he hasn't visited this version of Bombay earlier. Okay. Curiously, Gangadhar Pant then asked Khan Sahib how he plans to travel to Peshawar, indicating they are discussing travel routes under British rule. The train goes to the Victoria terminus. Okay, you can see asterisk sign is here. Okay, it is given its explanation below little bit. Okay, so these things I will avoid, but you have to have eye contact with such type of references. Okay, or else it will be very long. The video will be very long, and the time also will consume uh, long duration. So the train goes to the Victoria terminus. I will take the Frontier Mail there tonight out of Central. Okay. How far does it go? By what route? Bombay to Delhi. Okay. Here, Bombay to Delhi, then to Lahore, and then Peshawar. a long journey, a long journey. Okay, I will reach Peshawar the day after tomorrow. So in this part, okay, Khan Sahib explains his travel plans. The train they are on will arrive at first Victoria Terminus in Bombay. Later that night, he will take the Frontier Main, another train from Central to travel to Peshawar. He describes the route. The train goes from Bombay to Delhi, then to Lahore, and finally to Peshawar. It's a long journey, and he expects to reach Peshawar 2 days later. Whereafter Khan Sahib spoke a lot about his business, and Gangadhar Pant was a willing listener, for in that way he was able to get some flavor of life in this India that was so different. The train now passed through the suburban rail traffic. The blue carriages carried the letters GBMR. Okay, GBMR on the side. That means Greater Bombay Metropolitan Railway. This is the full form. Explained Khan Sahib. See the tiny Union Jack printed on each carriage. A gentle reminder that we are in British territory. So here in this passage, what it says, Khan Sahib talks about his business, and Gangadhar Pant listens very eagerly, as it gives him a sense of life in this vision of India, which feels similar, which feels they notice blue train carriages with the signs, okay, GBMR written on them. Khan Sahib explains that it stands for Greater Bombay Metropolitan Railway, pointing out the small Union Jack flag, okay, small Union Jack flag painted on each carriage, which indicates as or serves as a reminder that they are in British territory. The train began to slow down beyond Dadar and stopped only at its destination, Victoria Terminus. Victoria Terminus. The station looked remarkably neat and clean. The staff was mostly made up of Anglo-Indians and Parsis, along with a handful of British officers. As he emerged from the station, Gangadhar Pant found himself facing an imposing building. The letter on it proclaimed its identity. To those who did not know this Bombay landmark, East India House, headquarters of the East India Company. Okay, so here in this part, it tells that the train slows down after passing Dadar and finally arrives at Victoria Terminus, which appears exceptionally very neat, tidy, and well organized. The station staff consists mostly of Anglo-Indians, Parsis, and a few British officers. As Gangadhar Pant steps out of the station, he sees an imposing building with large letters identifying it as the East India House, the headquarters of the East India Company. This surprises him as it suggests that the East India Company still exists in this version of Bombay. Prepared, prepared as he was for many socks, Professor Gaitonde had not expected this. The East India Company had been wound up shortly after the events of 1857. At least that is what history books said. Yet here it was not only alive but flourishing. So history had taken a different turn, perhaps before 1857. However, how and when had it happened, he had to find out. So, two great reasons. Here in this part, Professor Guy Konde is shocked to see the East India Company still in existence. Okay, as the history books in his world says, the company was dissolved after the events of 1857. However, in this version of history, the company is thriving. He realizes that history must have taken a different path, possibly before 1857, and feels a strong need to investigate, okay, how and when this change occurred. As he walked along Hornby Road, as it was called, he found a different set of shops and office buildings. There was no handloom house building. Instead, there were booths and Woolworths departmental stores, imposing offices of Lloyds, Barclays, and other British banks, as in a typical high street of a town in England. In this passage, as Professor Gaitonde walks down Hornby Road, he notices that the shops and office buildings are different from what he knows. There is no handloom house. Instead, what is there? There are British stores like Boots and Woolworth, along with the grand offices of Lloyds, Barclays, and other British banks. The scene resembles the typical main street of an English town, highlighting the strong British influence in this vision of Bombay. Proceeding ahead with the explanation, he turned right along Home Street and entered Forbes Building. I wish to meet Mr. Vinay Gaitonde, please, he said to the English receptionist. She searched through the telephone list, the staff list, and then through the directory of employees of all the branches of the firm. She shook her head and said, I am afraid I can't find anyone of that name either here or in any of our branches. Are you sure he works here? So here, Professor Gaitonde turns right, okay, onto Home Street and enters where the Forbes building. He asked the English receptionist to help him. Mr. Vinay Gaitonde, the receptionist, looks through various lists of employees but cannot find anyone by that name in the building or at any of their branches. She then questions whether Gaitonde is sure that Vinay works there, indicating that there may be some confusion or a problem with this search. This was a blow not totally unexpected if he himself were dead in this world. What guarantee had he that his son would be alive? Indeed, he may not even have been born. He thanked the girl politely and came out. It was characteristic of him not to worry about where he would stay. His main concern was to make his way to the library of the Asiatic Society to solve the riddle of history. Grabbing a quick lunch at a restaurant, he made his way to the town hall. So here in this part, what the narrator says that Professor Gaitonde is disappointed but not entirely surprised that he could find his son Vinay in this world. He realizes that if he is dead here, there's no guarantee that his son is alive or even that he was ever born. After thanking the receptionist, he leaves the building without worrying about where he will stay. His primary focus was on reaching the Library of Asiatic Society to uncover the mysteries of history. Okay, to uncover the mysteries of history. He quickly grabs lunch at a restaurant before heading to the town hall. So first part of adventure we have ended, and overview of this explanation I will let you recall it, okay, what all was about. So in this first part, Professor Gaitonde, traveling on the Jijamata Express, arrives in a British controlled Bombay vastly different from what he knew. Shocked to find that the East India Company is still in power, he realizes history has taken a different direction or path. Streets are filled with British establishments, and his son Vinay Gaitonde seemingly doesn't exist. His primary goal is to uncover how this alternate history unfolded by visiting the library of the Asiatic Society. Along the way, he observes the significant British influence in daily life. So, what will be the moral of this or reflection of this to you? It possibly can be this, okay? Reality can have alternate possibilities shaped by different historical events. Let me repeat, moral can be reality can have alternate possibilities shaped by different historical events. So let us continue to enjoy the discussion. Second part. Yes, to his relief, the town hall was there and it did house the library. He entered the reading room and asked for a list of history books, including his own. His 5 volumes duly arrived on his table. He started from the beginning. Volume 1 took the history up to the period of Ashoka. Volume 2 up to Samudragupta. Volume 3 up to Muhammad Ghori. Volume 4 up to the death of Aurangzeb. Up to this period, history was as he knew it. The change evidently had occurred in the last volume, that is the fifth volume. Okay, so in this part, Professor Gaitonde is relieved to find that the town hall was still standing, existing, and contains the library, and he seeks the library books. So he entered the reading room and requested a list of history books, including his own five-volume work. When the volumes arrived at his table, he begins reading. The first volume was about, okay, familiar historical periods was about the Ashoka. First volume was about Ashoka. Second volume was about Samudragupta. Third volume was about Muhammad Ghori. And the fourth was about Aurangzeb's death. He realizes that history is as he knows is until this point, okay, suggesting that significant changes occurred in the last volume. Regarding volume 5, okay, from both ends inwards, Gangadhar Pant finally converged on the precise moment where history had taken different turns. That page in the book described the Battle of Panipat, and it mentioned that the Marathas won it handsomely. Abdali was and he was chased back to Kabul by few the young Vishwas Rao. This part, as Gangadhar Pant reads the book, okay, in the library, the fifth volume of his history book, from both ends towards the center, he discovers that the exact diverge from what he knows. He finds a page that details the Battle of Years. Abdali was defeated and chased back to Rao. This change in outcome indicates a significant shift in the course of Indian history. The book did not go into a blow-by-blow account of the battle itself. Rather, it elaborated in detail its consequences for the power struggle in India. Gangadhar Pant read through the account avidly. The style of writing was unmistakably his, yet he was reading the account of the first time. Here, here in this passage, it says that the book doesn't provide a detailed description of the Battle of Panipat, but instead focuses on its aftermath and how it affected the power dynamics in India. Gangadhar Pant reads this account eagerly, recognizing that the writing style is clearly his own, even though he is experiencing this particular account for the first time. This realization deepens his intrigue about the alternate history being presented. The victory in the battle was not only a great moral booster to the Marathas, but it also established their supremacy in northern India. The East India Company, which had been watching these developments from the sidelines, got the message and temporarily shelved its expansionist program. Here in this part, it says that the Marathas' victory in the Battle of Panipat greatly boosted their morale and solidified their dominance in the North India. The East India Company, which had been observing these events, recognized the significance of this change and decided to temporarily pause its plans for expansion. This highlights how the battle's outcome shifted the balance of power in India and impacted the strategies of colonial forces. For the Peshwas, the immediate result was an increase in the influence of Bhau Sahib and Vishwas Rao, who successfully succeeded his father in 1780 AD, the troublemaker Dada Saheb was relegated to the background and he eventually retired from the state politics. The passage says that as a result of Maratha's victory, Bhau Sahib and Vishwas Rao gained significant influence over the Peshwas, with Vishwas Rao eventually succeeding his fathers in 1780. Meanwhile, Dada Sahib, who had been a troublemaker in the political scene, lost his prominence and eventually withdrew from state politics altogether. This change illustrates the shift in power dynamics within the Maratha leadership following the battle. To its dismay, the East India Company met its match in the new Maratha ruler Vishwas Rao. He and his brother Madhav Rao combined political acumen with valor and systematically expanded their influence all over India. The company was reduced to pockets of influence near Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, just like its European rivals, the Portuguese and the French. So, what are the new names for these cities? I think you remember. That's why the asterisk, the star symbol is given here. Okay, so you see the reference in the book if you have kept open. Else, when you will open, then you will see the new name. Okay, these are the old name, and when you will reply or write in your answer, remember you have to write this old name. Okay, and if they demand a new name, then you give the new name. Okay, so here in this part, okay, what it says that the East India Company was uh, surprised to find a formidable opponent to the new Maratha ruler. Strategy and bravery to expand Maratha influence across India, both brothers. As a result, the company found itself limited to only a few areas around Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. Okay, and in modern way, what you will say, Mumbai, okay, Kolkata, and Chennai, right? Okay. Similarly to the positions held by other European rivals like Portuguese and the French. So finally, the thing is here, the shift of power, okay, demonstrates how the Marathas actively challenged and diminished the company's power in India. Okay. The political reasons the Peshwa kept the puppet Mughal regime, okay, alive in Delhi in the 19th century. These de facto rulers from Pune astute enough to recognize the importance of the technical age, downing in Europe their own centers for science and technology. Here, the saw another opportunity to extend its influence. It offered aid and experts. They were accepted only to make the local centers self-sufficient. Here in this part, the narrative says that for political reasons, the Peshwas maintained the Mughal regime in Delhi as a puppet government. Okay, in the 19th century, the Peshwas recognized the significance of the emerging technological advancements in Europe and established their own centers for science and technology. Then the East India Company saw this as a chance to expand its influence and offered support and experts to help these centers. However, the Peshwa accepted this aid with the intention of eventually making their local centers self-sufficient, indicating their desire to maintain control and independence. Moving ahead with the other passages, The 20th century brought about further changes inspired by the West. India moved towards a democracy. By then, the Peshwas had lost their enterprise and they were gradually replaced by democratically elected bodies. The Sultanate at Delhi survived even this transition largely because it wielded no real influence. The Shahenshah of Delhi was no more than a figurehead to rubber stamp the recommendations made by the central parliament. In this passage or in this part, the narrator says that in the 20th century, India underwent significant changes as it moved toward democracy influenced by Western ideals. The Peshwas, having lost their initiative, were gradually replaced by democratically elected institutions. Meanwhile, the Sultanate in Delhi managed to survive this shift, but it held no real power. The Shahenshah of Delhi became merely a figurehead, serving to approve the decision made by the central parliament without any genuine authority. This illustrates the shift in governance and the diminishing role of traditional leaders in a democratic framework. As he as he read on, Gangadhar Pant to uh, appreciate the India he had seen. It was a country that had not been subjected to slavery for the white man. It had learned to stand on its feet and knew what self-respect was from a position of strength, and for the purely commercial reasons. It had allowed the British to retain Bombay as the sole outpost on the subcontinent. That lease was to expire, okay, in the year 2001 according to a treaty of 1908. So here in this part, the narrator says, as Gangadhar Pant continues reading in the library, he starts to understand and appreciate the India, our country, he has encountered. Okay, he realizes that this country had not been enslaved by colonial powers. Instead, it had developed a sense of self-respect and independence. From a position of strength, India allowed the British to keep Bombay as their own base in the subcontinent for commercial reasons. However, this arrangement was set to end in 2001 based on a treaty established in 1908. This reflection highlights that India's resilience and strategic choices in its interactions with colonial powers. Gangadhar Pant could not Gangadhar Pant could not help comparing the country he knew with what he was witnessing around him, but at the same time he felt that his investigation were how did the Marathas win the battle? To find the answer, he must look for accounts of the battle itself. He went through the books and journals before him. Among the books, he found one that gave him the clue. It was Bhaushi Banki Bakhar. Okay, so here it says like this: Gangadhar Pant finds himself comparing the India he knows with the one he is observing around him. However, he feels that his research is not yet finished because he needs to understand how the Marathas won the Battle of Panipat. To find this information, he decided to look for accounts, especially detailing the battle. As he searches through the available books and journals, he finally discovers one that provides a significant clue, hint, okay? That was, okay, Baushi Banki Bakar, which likely contains important information about the battle and its outcome. Although he seldom relied on the Bakers for historical evidence, he found them entertaining to read, sometimes buried in the graphic but doctorate accounts. He could spot the germ of truth. He found one now in a three-line account of how close Vishwas Rao had come to being killed. And then Vishwas Rao guided. This is the okay graphic doctorate accounts that is printed there in that book what he was reading. He then Vishwas Rao guided his horse to the melee where the Allied troops were fighting and he attacked them, and God was merciful. A shot brushed past his ear. Even the defense of a chill sesame would have led to his death. Here in this passage, it says that although Gangadhar Pant typically doesn't trust Bhakas as reliable historical sources, he enjoys reading them for their entertaining narratives. He sometimes finds elements of truth within their exaggerated accounts. In this instance, he discovers a brief passage that describes, okay, how close Vishwas Rao, okay, how close Vishwas Rao came to being killed during the Battle of Panipat. The passage recounts how Vishwas Rao changed into the midst of the fighting Allied troops and narrowly escaped death when a bullet grazed his ear. It emphasizes that even the slightest difference, likened to the size of a sesame seed, could have resulted in his dismiss to his death. That means. At 8 o'clock, the librarian politely reminded the professor that the library was closing for the day. Gangadhar Pant Gangadhar Pant emerged from his thoughts. Looking around, he noticed that he was the only reader left in that magnificent hall. I beg your pardon, sir. May I request you to keep these books here for my use tomorrow morning? By the way, when do you open? Here, the narrator says that the time was 8 o'clock and the librarian kindly reminded Gangadhar Pant that the library would be closing soon. He snapped out of his thought, Dennis came out of his thought and realized he was the last reader left remained there in the grand hall. He asked the librarian if he could leave the books there for him to reuse the next morning and inquired about the library's opening time. So the librarian replied, what? At 8 o'clock, sir, the librarian smiled. Here was a user and researcher right after his hurt. As the professor left the table, he shoved some notes into his right pocket. Absent-mindedly, he also shoved the markers into his left pocket. So here, finally, the librarian said that the library will open at 8 o'clock, and then she smiled politely. Here was a user and researcher right after his heart. As the professor left the table, he shoved, taken something, okay, some notes into his right pocket, okay. Absent-mindedly, mistakenly, he also shoved, okay, the Barker into his left pocket, okay. So the librarian what did? The librarian responded, okay, that the library opens at 8 o'clock, sir, and smiled. Pleased to have a dedicated user like you, researcher like you, Gangadhar Pant. As the professor got up from the table, he put some notes into his right pocket. In his absent-mindedness, he also tucked the Barker's book into his left pocket without thinking much about it. So finally, we came to end of the second part. Okay, inside the library. So the overview of the entire uh, expression is like this. Okay, Professor Gaitonde visits a library to understand the alternate history of India. He discovers that in this timeline, the Marathas won the Battle of Panipat, leading to their dominance over India and curbing British expansion. The East India Company remains confined to small regions, while the Marathas fostered technologically growth and transitioned into democracy. As he investigates further, Gaitonde learns from a Bhakkars that Bishwas Rao narrowly survived a fatal shot during the battle at the Panipat, a key event in this alternate history. So we can conclude by the moral that small events can significantly alter the course of history. That means the change. Okay, change. Small events can significantly alter, that means change the course of history. So in our life also, little bit disturbance also it change, or little bit happening of something it change the entire way of moving ahead, right? To do or complete anything. So this is the end of the second part that the narrator had discussed, and let us continue with the explanation. Bear with me. I'll complete entire explanation. So naturally, it will consume long time. Okay. He found a guest house to stay in. Stroll towards the Azad Maidan. In the Maidan, he found a throng moving towards a pandal, so a lecture was to take place. Of habit took Professor Gaitonde towards the pandal. The lecture was in progress, although people kept coming and going, but Professor Gaitonde was not looking at the audience. He was staring at the platform as if mesmerized. There was a table and a chair, but the latter was unoccupied. In this passage, or in this part, it says that after finding a guest house for the night, okay, and having a simple meal, Gangadhar Pant decided to take a walk towards Azad Maidan. There he noticed a large crowd heading towards a pandal, indicating that a lecture was happening. Out of habit, he approached the pandal where the lecture was already underway, with people continuously arriving and leaving. However, Gangadhar Pant's attention was not on the audience. He was fixated on the platform, seemingly entranced by it. Although there was a table set up, the chair remained empty. The presidential chair unoccupied, the sight steered him to the depths like a piece of iron at- attracted to a magnet. He swiftly moved towards the chair. The speaker stopped in mid-sentence, too shocked to continue, but the audience soon found voice. Vacate the chair. This lecture series has no chairperson. Away from the platform, mister. The chair is symbolic. Don't you know? So here in this part, the conversation is taking place. Okay, the empty presidential chair deeply moved Gangadhar Pant, drawing him toward it like iron to a magnet. That means he was just being pulled by the side. Okay, that he should attend that lecture. When he reached the chair, the speaker paused. Whoever was giving the lecture, the speaker paused in surprise, unable to continue. However, the audience quickly reacted, calling out various demands. They insisted, okay, that he should leave the chair. Pointed out that the lecture series did not have a chairperson, and asserted that the chair was merely a symbolic or symbol. Their reactions show the tension and significance of the moment, highlighting the importance of the chair in the context of the lecture. When what nonsense! Who ever heard of a public lecture without presiding dignitary? Professor Gaitonde went to the mic and gave vent to his views. Ladies and gentlemen, an unchaired lecture is like Shakespeare's Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark, let me tell you. But the audience was in no mood to listen. Tell us nothing. We are sick of remarks from the chair, vote of thanks, of long introductions. In this part, Gangadhar Pant found it absurd to have a public lecture without a presiding dignitary. He stepped up to the microphone on the stage to express his thoughts, comparing an unchaired lecture to Hamlet without its main character, the Prince of Denmark. However, the audience was not receptive to his comments. They responded dismissively, stating that they were tired of formalities like remarks for the chair, votes of thanks, and lengthy introductions. This exchange highlights the audience desire for a more genuine and engaging experience rather than the unusual formalities associated with such events. But Gangadhar Pant had the experience of speaking at 999 meetings and had faced the Pune audience at its most hostile. He kept on talking. Here, the audience the audience continued to express their frustration, insisting that they only wanted to hear the speaker and had long since discarded old customs. They urged to keep the platform empty, indicating their desire for a different kind of lecture. Despite this, Gangadhar Pant, drawing on his vast experience from speaking at many meetings, even facing crowds in Pune, persisted in speaking. His determination to share his views reflects his confidence and commitment regardless of resistance. As soon he target for a shower of tomatoes, eggs, and other objects, but he kept on trying valiantly to correct this scourge. Finally, the audience swarmed to the stage to eject him bodily, and in the crowd, Pant was nowhere to be seen. So here in this passage, it says that as Gangadhar Pant continued to speak, he quickly became the target of a barrage of tomatoes, eggs, and other objects thrown by the audience on him. Despite the chaos and the attempts in silence him, he valiantly tried to address what he viewed as sacrilege. Eventually, the crowd surged onto the stage, came upward on the stage to hold him physically, removed him amidst the commotion. He mysteriously vanished, leaving no trace of where he had gone. This turn of events underscores the intensity of the situation and highlights the audience's reaction of his presence. So finally, we had come to an end of this part also. So let me recall the overview of this part. Professor Gaitonde, after a meal, Azad Maidan, where a lecture was taking place, noticing the presidential chair unoccupied, he was shocked and impulsively took the stage to express his disapproval. He argued that a lecture without a chairperson was improper, likening it to, that means comparing, okay, helmet without the Prince of Denmark. Audience tired of formality, rejected his views, preferring a speaker only format. Despite their protest and throwing objects at him, Gaiton persisted until the crowd removed him and he disappeared. So the moral, or we have to draw after each part. Okay, so here the moral, it can be, okay, possibly like this: clinging to outdated traditions can lead to conflict in a changing world. Okay, clinging to outdated, TO2, okay, clinging to outdated traditions can lead to conflict in a changing world. Continuing with the next part, that is all I have to tell, Rajendra. All I know is that I was found in the Azad Maidan in the morning, but I was back in the world I am familiar with. Now, where exactly did I spend those 2 days when I was absent from here? Rajendra was dumbfounded by the narrative. It took him a while to reply, Professor, before, just prior to your collision with the truck, what were you doing? Rajendra asked. Okay, so here in this part, the narrator says that Gangadhar Pant is recounting his unusual experience to Rajendra, stating that he was discovered in Azad Maidan the following morning but had returned to the familiar world he knows. He expresses confusion about where he had spent the 2 days he was missing. Rajendra was astonished by the story, takes a moment to respond before asking about what Gangadhar Pant was doing just before he collided with the truck. This question suggests that Rajendra is trying to piece together the events leading up to the incident and understanding its significance. I was thinking of the catastrophe theory and its implications for history. Right, I thought so. Rajendra smiled. Don't smile smugly. In case you think that it was just my mind playing tricks and my brain running amok, look at this. Here, in this part, the narrator says that Gangadhar Pant explains that he was contemplating the theory and its implications for history just before the collision. Rajendra responds with a smile, seemingly understanding the connection. However, warns him not to be overly confident in dismissing his experience as mere imagination. He then presents evidence or an item to support his claims, indicating that he has something tangible to validate his unusual experience and counter any skepticism. And triumphantly, Professor Gaitonde produced his vital piece of evidence, a page torn out of a book. Rajendra read the text on the printed page and his face underwent a change. Gone was the smile, and in its place came a grave expression. He was visibly moved. Here, the narrator says that Professor Gaitonde proudly reveals a crucial piece of evidence, a torn page from a book. By mistakenly, he had put inside his left pocket. Okay, when Rajendra read the text on the page, his demeanor changes, appearance changes dramatically. The smile he had is replaced by a serious expression, indicating that he is deeply affected by what he sees. This reaction suggests that the contents of the page hold significant importance or relevance to their discussion, further emphasizing the weight of Gaitonde's experience. Gangadhar Pant Gaikonde pressed home his advantage. I had inadvertently slipped the Bhakers in my pocket as I left the library. I discovered my error when I was paying for my meal. I had intended to return it the next morning, but it seems that in the melee of Azad Maidan, the book was lost. Only this torn off page remained, and luckily for me, the page contains vital evidences. In this part, the narrator says Gangadhar Pant seized the moment to emphasize his point. He explained that he had accidentally taken the Bhakar's book with him when leaving the library and only realized it while paying for his meal. He had planned to return it the next morning, but during the chaos at Azad Maidan, the book was lost, leaving behind only the torn page. Fortunately for him, this page contains crucial evidence related to his experience, highlighting its significance in the discussion. Rajendra Rajendra again read the page and how that uh, and oh, no no Rajendra again read the page. It described how Vishwas Rao narrowly missed the bullet and how that event, taken as an omen by the Maratha army, turned the tide in their favor. Now look at this. Gangadhar Pant produced his own copy of Bhav Shiban Ki Bhakar, opened at the relevant page. The account run thus. And then Vishwas Rao guided his horse to the melee where the Allied troops, British troop, okay, were fighting, and he attacked them, and God expressed his displeasure. He was hit by the bullet. So in this part, what the discussion was that Rajendra read the torn page again, which detailed how Vishwas Rao narrowly escaped being shot and how this event was interpreted as a good omen. That means sign or chance or luck, you can say, okay, omen by the Maratha army helping them win the battle. Then Gangadhar Pant presented his own copy of Bhavshi Banki Bakhar, opening it to the corresponding section. This account described, okay, a different outcome. It stated that Vishwas Rao was actually hit by a bullet, which indicate divine disfavor. This contrast between the two accounts highlights the significant difference in historical interpretations and the importance of the torn page in understanding the events. Professor Gaitonde, you have given me food for thought. Until I saw this material evidence, I had simply put your experience down to fantasy. But facts can be stranger than fantasies, as I am beginning to realize. Facts? What are facts? I am dying to know, Professor Gaitonde said. Okay, so here Rajendra acknowledges the impact of what he has seen, telling Professor Guy given him much to consider. Before seeing his experience was merely a fantasy, a dream. However, he now recognizes that facts can sometimes be more than fiction. Intrigued, Professor Gaitonde eagerly asked Rajendra to share what these facts are, showing his curiosity and desire to understand the significance of his life experience and the historical implications. So overall of all the discussion of this part is like this, okay? Professor Gaikonde recounts his leisure two-day experience to Rajendra, who initially believes it to be a figment of his imagination. Gaitonde reveals a torn page from a Bacchus as evidence describing how narrowly survived a bullet, altering the outcome, okay, of the Battle of Panipat. Rajendra compares it to Gaitonde's own copy, which states Rao was killed. Moved by this material evidence, Rajiv acknowledges that Gaitonde's experience have been mere fantasy, suggesting that facts can sometimes be stranger than imagination. So here also we can draw a moral and learn something that reality can be more surprising than imagination. Going ahead with the last portions of explanation, as I said, it will take time, okay, but I'll complete entire explanation. Excuse me if my voices have some glitches, okay, due to the hardware only. Sometimes my voice might be not able to hear few words clearly, okay. So what I say, let us continue with the edition. We are finally about to end also. Hardly few minutes it will take. So Rajendra motioned him to silence and started pacing the room, obviously under great mental strain. Finally, he turned around and said, Professor Gaitonde, I will rationalize your experience on the basis of two scientific theories as known today. I succeed or not in convincing you of facts, only you can judge. For you have indeed passed through a fantastic experience or more catastrophic experience. Here in this part, Rajendra gestured for silence and began to pace the room, clearly grappling with intense mental pressure. After some time, he faced Gaitonde and explained that he would attempt to make sense of Gaitonde's experience using two scientific theories known today that is relevant, he acknowledged that whether he could convince Gaitonde of the reality behind his experience would depend on Gaitonde himself, emphasizing the extraordinary nature of what Gaitonde had gone through, referring to it as a catastrophic experience. This highlights Rajendra's serious approach to understanding the situation and the significance of Gaitonde's journey. Please continue. I am all ears, Professor Gaitonde replied. Rajendra continued pacing as he t- you have you have heard a lot about the catastrophe theory at that seminar. Let us apply to it to the Battle of Panipat. Wars fought face to face on open grounds offer excellent examples of this theory. Maratha army was facing Abdali's troops on the field of Panipat. There was no great disparity between the latter's troops and the opposing forces. Their armor was comparable, so a lot dependent on the leadership and the morale of the troops. The juncture at the Vishwasrao, the son of and heir to the Peshwa, was killed proved to be the turning point. As history has it, as his uncle Bhav Sahib rushed into the melee and was never seen again. Whether he was killed in battle or survived is not known, of but for the troops at the particular moment, that blow of losing their leaders was crucial. They lost their moral and fighting spirit. There followed an utter rout. In this paragraph, the narrator or the speaker says that Professor Gaitonde encourages Rajendra to continue expressing his full attention. Rajendra explains that they can use the catastrophic theory to analyze the Battle of Panipat. He notes that he notes that wars fought on open fields like this one, Battle of Panipat, that means, are ideal examples of the theory. He explains that the Maratha and Abdali forces were evenly matched in terms of numbers and armor, meaning leadership and moral were crucial. The main moment came Rao, the Peshwa's heir, was killed, which Raja believes marked a turning point in the battle. He mentions that Bhau Sahib, Vishwas Rao's uncle, charged into the battle but vanished, leaving uncertainty about his fate. Significantly impacted troop morale, leading to the defeat and chaotic retreat. Exactly, Professor, and what you have shown me on that torn page is the course taken by the battle. When the bullet missed Vishwas Rao, a crucial event gone the other way, and its effect on the troops was also the opposite. It boosted their morale and provided just that extra impetus that made all the difference, Rajendra said. Here it says that Rajendra agrees with Professor Gaitonde, pointing out that the torn page illustrates an alternate outcome of the battle. If Vishwas Rao had been missed by the bullet, the change in a crucial event would have had a significant different impact on the troops. Instead of losing morale. They would have gained confidence and motivation, which could have ultimately altered the course of the battle in favor of the Marathas. Rajendra emphasizes that this hypothetical scenario highlights the importance of small events in shaping historical outcomes. Maybe so. Similar statements are made about the Battle of Waterloo, which Napoleon could have won, but we live in a unique world which has a unique history. This idea of it might have been is okay for the sake of speculation but not for reality, Gangadhar Pant said. So here the discussion is still going on, okay? And let me little bit more take the reading, then I will explain it, okay? I take issue with you there. In fact, that brings me to my second point, which you may find strange. But please hear me out, Rajendra said. So here in this conversation, we can say discussions, okay? Gangadhar Pant and Rajendra. The narrative says that Professor Gaitonde acknowledges Rajendra's point but counters that discussions about alternate historical outcomes, like the Battle of Waterloo, okay, are speculative. He believes that while it's interesting to consider what might have been, it doesn't change the unique reality of their current world and history. Rajendra, however, disagrees and insists he has a second point to make, which he feels may sound unusual but is worth discussing. This exchange highlights their differing perspective on the significance of historical speculation versus reality. Gangadhar Pant listened expectantly as Rajendra continued, "What do you mean by reality? We experience it directly with our senses or indirectly via instruments. But is it limited to what we see? Does it have other manifestations?" Here Gangadhar Pant pays close attention as Rajendra elaborates on the concept of reality. Rajendra questions what reality truly means, noting that it can be experienced directly through our senses or indirectly through tools and instruments. However, he challenges the notion that reality is confined to just what we can observe, suggesting that there might be other aspects of or manifestations, examples, okay, or demonstrations of reality beyond mere sensory experience. This sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the nature of reality itself. That reality may not be unique has been found from experiments on very small systems of atoms and their constituent particles. When dealing with such system, the physicists discovered something startling. The behavior of these systems cannot be predicted definitely, even if all the physical laws governing those systems are known. Here, Rajendra explains that reality might not be singular based on experiments conducted on tiny systems like atoms and their particles. He reveals that physicists have made a surprising discovery even when they understand all the physical laws that govern this small system. They cannot predict their behavior unity. This unpredictability could interpretations or outcomes, challenging the idea of a fixed or unique reality. Take an example. I fire electron from a source. Where will it go? If I fire a bullet from in a given direction at a given speed, where it will be at a later time, but I cannot an assertion for the electron. It may be here, there, anywhere. I can at best put odds for it being found in a specified location at a specified time. Here Rajendra provides an example to illustrate his point about unpredictability in small systems. He contrasts the behavior of an electron with what of a bullet. When a bullet is fired from a gun, its path can be accurately predicted based on its direction and speed. However, with an electron, even if it's fired from a source, its exact location at a later time cannot be determined. Instead, physicists can only provide probabilities for where the electrons might be found, highlighting uncertainty in the behavior of particle atomic level. The lack of determinism in quantum theory. Even an ignoramus historian like me has heard of it, Professor Gaitonde said. Imagine many worlds pictures. In one world the electron is found, here in another it is over there. In yet another it is in still different location. Once the observer finds where it is, we know which world we are talking about. But all those alternative worlds could exist just the same. Rajendra paused to marshal in this part that Gaitonde, Professor Gaitonde acknowledges the concept of indeterminism in quantum theory, recognizing its significance even though he is historian. Rajendra then elaborates on the idea of multiple realities or world pictures. He explains that if an electron is observed, it could be in different locations in different worlds. Once the electron is found, we can identify which specific world we are dealing with. However, he emphasized that all these alternative realities could exist simultaneously, highlighting and multiplicity of reality at the quantum level. But is there any contact between those many worlds? Professor Gaitonde asked. Yes and no. Imagine two worlds. For example, in both an electron is orbiting the nucleus of an atom. Here Professor Gaitonde inquires whether there is any interaction between the multiple worlds Raj mentioned. Rajendra responds with a not answer, suggesting that there can be both connections and separations. He uses the example of two worlds where an electron is orbiting the nucleus of an atom in both. This sets the stage for further exploration these worlds might relate to each other, whether their phenomena can influence one another. Like planets around the sun, Gangadhar Pant interjected, not quite. We know the precise trajectory of the planet. The electron could be orbiting in any of a large number of specified states. These states may be used to identify the world. In state number one, we have the electron in a state of higher energy. In state number two, it is in a state of lower energy. It can make a jump from high to low energy and out a pulse of radiation, or a pulse of radiation can knock it out of state number two into number one. Such transitions are common in microscopic systems. What if microscopic level, Rajendra? So here the narrative says that Gangadhar Pant compares the electron orbit to planets around the sun. But Rajendra clarifies that it's not the same because electron's path is uncertain. He explains that an electron can exist in various energy states like high and low energy. When it jumps from one another, it can emit radiation. Rajendra then poses a thought-provoking question: what if these energy transitions, which are typically in small systems, also occurred on a larger microscopic scale? This suggests a deeper connection between quantum behavior and everyday experiences. I get you. You are suggesting that I made a transition from one world to another act again, Gangadhar Pant asked. Fantastic, though it seems this is the only explanation I can offer. My theory is that catastrophic situations offer radically different alternatives for the world to proceed. It seems that so far as reality is concerned, all alternatives are viable, but the observer can experience only one of them at a time. So, for the entire explanation, it is hidden here only. Okay, this one, this Professor, okay, Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde is telling, okay, from the beginning till the end, you will get here the main hint that Rajendra is listening. You are suggesting, okay, that I made a transition from one. This is the main statement of the entire nation. Okay, Gadhar Pant asked, fantastic though it seems, this is the only explanation I can offer. My theory is that catastrophic situations offer radically different alternatives for the world to proceed. It seems that so far as reality is concerned, all alternatives are viable, but the observer can experience only one of them at a time. Gangadhar Pant realizes that Rajendra is using a theory where he might have shifted between different worlds due to a catastrophic event. Rajendra explains that in such extreme situations, multiple possibility outcomes exist, but an observer can only experience one at a time. This means that although many realities could occur simultaneously, we only perceive the one we find ourselves in. It's a mind bending idea that challenges their understanding of reality and history. By making a transition, you were able to experience two worlds, although one at a time, the one you live in now and the one where you spent 2 days. One has the history we know, the other a different history. The separation all took place in the Battle of Panipat. You neither traveled to the past nor to the future. You were in the present, but experiencing the world. Of course, by the same token, there must be many more different worlds arising out of purifications at different points of time. So, here Rajendra explains to Gangadhar Pant that by transitioning between worlds, he different realities one after the other travel through time. Instead, he remained in the present but encountered a different version of history. This purification happened during the Battle of Panipat, where various possible outcomes created distinct worlds. Rajendra suggests that many more alternate branching out from different moments, indicating the complexity of existent history. Finally, we have reached to the end now. So, very lengthy chapter, okay, but it is all about present, connecting to the past and future, but you are in present. Okay, that is what it is happening. As Rajendra concluded, Gangadhar Pant asked the question that was beginning to bother him. Why did I make the transition? If I knew the answer, I would solve a great problem. Unfortunately, there are many unsolved questions in science, and this is one of them. But that does not stop me from guessing. Rajendra smiled and proceeded. You need some interaction to cause a transition. Perhaps at the time of the collision, you were thinking about the catastrophe theory and its role in wars. Maybe you were wondering about the Battle of Panipat. Perhaps the neurons in your brain acted as a trigger. So here, what narrator says that Gangadhar Pant is curious about why he experienced the transition between worlds. Rajendra admits he doesn't have a but offers a guess. He suggests that some interaction is needed for such a transition to occur. At the time of the truck collision with him, Gangadhar Pant was contemplating the catastrophic theory and its implications for historical events like the Battle of Panipat. Rajendra that the neurons in Gangadhar Pant's brain may act as a trigger, prompting the shift in his reality. A good guess. I was indeed wondering what history would have taken if the result of the battle had gone the other way. Professor Gaitonde said that was going to be the topic of my 1000th presidential address. Now you are in the happy position recounting your real life experience rather than just speculating. Rajendra laughed, but Gangadhar Pant got grave. No, Rajendra, my thousandth was made on the Azad Maidan. Was so rudely interrupted. No, Gaitonde, who disappeared while bending his chair on the platform, will never be seen presiding at another meeting. I have conveyed my regrets to the of the Panipat seminar. Finally, Gangadhar Pant acknowledges that he had been contemplating a potential alternate history resulting from the Battle of Panipat, which was to be the focus of his upcoming presidential address. Rajendra jokes that he now has a real life experience to share instead of just speculation. However, Gangadhar Pant is serious, stating that his actual thousandth okay, address interrupted at the Azad Maidan, and the version of himself that was there trying to defend himself will never be seen again. He has also informed the organizers about the Panipat seminar of his regrets about not being able to attend. Finally, the overview of the discussion is that Professor Gaitonde shares his strange experience of living in an alternate reality where the Marathas won the Battle of Panipat. Rajendra explains his experience using the catastrophe theory and quantum mechanics, suggesting that Gaitonde's transitioned between two parallel worlds. According to Rajendra, catastrophic events like the Battle of Panipat can create alternate realities, and Gaitonde briefly experienced one of them. The transition triggered by his thoughts at the time of the incident. Gaitonde accepts that his thousandth address will never happen. So finally, I draw two moral here, okay, that reality can have multiple possibilities and small events can lead to significant unpredictable outcomes, or even small in critical moments can create different realities. So about the adventure, okay, so the life is just adventure, okay, and enjoy the challenges hard in life. Thank you for listening my explanation, and I advise you once more, please go through the text, read by yourself, find out the word problems, difficult meanings, and surely you will remember entirely. Okay? Because if I'll continue more discussion, it will take more long time. So till today, for we'll stop with this chapter. We'll meet with the next